Hi friends, Evolving Guys here. Thanks for tuning back into the channel to follow our collection journey. And today's video is a little different because instead of talking as much about our collection journey, I'm talking about our vending journey. I vended my very first card show this past weekend, and so I wanted to share a few thoughts. I didn't do any live video, or I know there's some creators who do videos of their, or even live streams of their vending, which is very cool. But in our case, I just have some props to talk through a little bit of the lessons learned and a few things that I picked up for my own collection. But anyway, to start off, so this was a local card show. It was just 5 minutes from where I live, and so that made it pretty convenient to just be able to drive down a local card shop that I know put this on. And I attended as just an attendee. They do this same card show twice a year in my area, so I was able to go as a just participant last time and got to get a sense of the card show. And I don't know, I just thought I have some, mainly for me, it's about, I have some sealed product in particular that I picked up over the years that I really probably don't need and wanted to move along. So that was my main goal, was to sell some sealed stuff. I did create some mystery tins that I'll talk about in a second, did some mystery products that I made as well, but I really didn't have singles except for jumbo card singles. And I'll talk about how that may have affected my sales. But in any case, setup was 8 to 10 a.m. and then the show went from 10 to 6 p.m. I think attendance was, I don't know, just seemed okay to me. I talked to another vendor who said that it had been better in the past. And so that's one indication that maybe the crowds weren't quite as large as they had maybe hoped or expected. Also, it's definitely important to say that this show was primarily a sports card show. I would guess maybe 80% of the vendors were sports cards and maybe 20 or 25% of us were Pokemon. So there was like a critical mass of Pokemon folks. It's not like I was the only one. But that said, it definitely wasn't exclusively Pokemon. And there were several moments during the show where I just sort of imagined, how it would feel different if almost everybody there was Pokemon, or if 80% were Pokemon and only 20% were sports or other things. There really wasn't much besides Pokemon and sports. I didn't really see any Magic or Lorcana or things like that. So anyway, that just gives you some sense of who was there. So anyway, as far as things that I learned, I would say on the whole, I did okay. I was a little disappointed, honestly, with how much I sold. I was between two sports vendors and I talked to them throughout the day. And I think they both did thousands of dollars of business. One maybe thought $3,000 to $4,000 of sales, and the other one maybe a little bit less than that. But they both definitely had steady traffic. And they were mostly selling singles and graded cards. I think almost, well, some singles, some ungraded singles, some raw singles, sports cards, and some graded. There's not really, neither of them, I guess there are sealed products, but I mean, much less of a thing, I think, in sports cards perhaps than in Pokemon. So anyway, but both of them did pretty well. So as far as my sales, I can be just kind of upfront. I made, the cash I took in was $353, so not like a ton. I guess, again, it's all relative. I did do a trade of a couple sealed products for a card that a kid had who came by, a card I needed for my personal collection. So that for me is a win, because I'm turning two larger, bulkier products into a card that I need. So the card just slips into my binder, and I'm trying to downsize some of my collection. So that was, I think, pretty effective. And then my biggest learning, this kind of leads into my biggest learning of the day, is I decided just to go cash only this first time around. That's been my experience at card shows, is that cash is king and you are kind of prepared to spend and pay with cash. And when I was at this card show previously, I did some purchases as just again, as a participant, and they were cash only purchases. And so I did not, and it was just this one step too far as planning and getting organized, was to think about figuring out the electronic payment piece. I know it's not that complicated, but I've never done that before. And so I don't already have Venmo or Cash App on my phone. So I just decided to hold off on that. And I definitely lost some sales. I stopped keeping track, but I think I at least had over $200 of sales I could have made that I didn't make because, people identified some things and then they pulled out their credit card, and I was like, oh, I do cash only. And I was told, although I could never confirm this, that there is an ATM kind of in the facility where we were at a convention center, but the ATM was out of service, which seems really a problem for an event like ours, where cash is so important. And if they had to walk across the street or go somewhere else to get cash, I don't even know where the nearest place was. We were in the downtown of a city, so I assume there was probably an ATM somewhere, and if someone was really motivated, they could have figured that out. But obviously, that's another barrier. So that's on me, and that's definitely a learning. And so I'm trying to assess the event as if I had sold those things that I couldn't sell because they didn't have cash. But also, one thing I learned, I talked to both sports cards vendors again on either side of me, and they estimated that only about 10% of their folks used electronic payments. I think cash really is king in the sports cards world. They were both set up to take electronic payments, but most of the time when I looked over, they were, people were using cash even for pretty large deals and purchases. And so maybe it's just a difference between sports cards and Pokemon cards. I'm curious your thoughts in the comments if that's been your experience. But I mean, there were some adults there who were there for Pokemon cards, but a lot of times it was parents with kids, and maybe the parents weren't quite equipped with cash. They were thinking they could just pull out a credit card and pay for things. And so that maybe is one difference. And I still don't know about neither of the vendors on either side of me, even though they did thousands of dollars of business at the card show. Neither of them had a Square or took like actual swipes of cards. They just had, Cash App and PayPal and Venmo and things like that. So anyway, that's definitely a learning that I want to be prepared for electronic transactions. So I'm trying to assess the value of this card show as if I had made those sales. So I think if you add in the sales that I could have made but didn't make, I think I would have probably netted closer to like 650 or 700, or I would have earned about 650 or $700 instead of the 350. So that is something for me to keep in mind. The other thing, like I said, I did do a trade. So I did most of the things I sold. Definitely there were some kids that came up and wanted to trade, and I was always happy to look at someone's binder if there's something they had that I needed for my personal collection. I'm working on master sets, as you know, if you watch the channel. So, again, I was happy. For me, it's a win if I can turn a couple sealed products into a card that I need, because I already own the sealed products and I'm downsizing, and so that works out pretty well. So anyway, so as far as like a few other learnings and observations, again, I already said the number one thing is take electronic payments next time. The other one that I'm kind of weighing is just like, because it's only a 20% or so of Pokemon people at this event. I mean, it's nice that it's local. It's literally 5 minutes from my house. So in that sense, it's super easy just to take my stuff down there. I don't have to stay overnight. I don't have to drive 3 or 4 hours. I was kind of impressed to learn that several of the other vendors had driven several hours, and in some cases made it a weekend, like they brought their families and they were going to be in town for a couple of nights just to enjoy the city. But for me, that's, obviously much more planning, much more time. And then you also have to think through like being able to fit everything in one vehicle, plus your family and any luggage or that sort of thing. A few people were driving a few hours and then vending and then driving back the same day, so they weren't going to pay for a hotel room, but that's a bigger commitment, obviously. Setup was between 8 and 10 a.m., and so the idea that like you might have to leave home at 5 in the morning to drive 3 hours to then set up for 2 hours and then vend for 6 hours and then drive, pack up and then drive 3 more hours makes it a really long day. So in that way, it was really nice that it was close. I don't know. I'd have to think through if I would want to do something a little further away. And then, so it's nice for me that it's close, but also the challenge was that because it's not exclusively Pokemon, if only 20% of the vendors, then assume maybe 20% of the foot traffic was kind of directed for me, or I even had a chance at a sale with only 20% of the folks there. So that does kind of cut down on the incentive. I was imagining, if I were just at like a regional event or a card party type of thing, I mean, how different it would be as far as the volume. A few things I learned. I didn't have singles, and I think a few other vendors said singles really did move, and they also brought people to the table. And they would look for singles that maybe end up picking up additional products. So I think next time, even if I don't have a large selection of singles, that's not really my focus personally. But I mean, I have my own master sets, but as far as I don't acquire and amass a lot of singles to sell, but that's a thought. Also, I was thinking about maybe having some homemade. I have these homemade small packs that I sell, for $5 and $8 at local vendor malls and local stores, and so I didn't have a chance to kind of pull those together for this event, but I think having some low value or low dollar items might be helpful too. I did do some giveaways. I had some mini packs that I made for kids, and I just gave those out for free, and those seemed to be really appreciated. I could have had a lot more of those. I ran out of those after the first couple hours, but especially little kids really love to just open anything that has cards in it, and it was super easy lift. I mean, nothing valuable in there, but just a reverse holo, a holo, and a handful of bulk cards, and kids are pretty happy, and it was a nice way to brighten a kid's day. It was really fun to see the reaction of some of the kids who just tore into the pack right away and wanted to see what they had. I also use it as an opportunity to give a few things away. I have a lot of those 151 posters that came in the 151 poster collections, and so I just gave those away. And so people seem to appreciate those, and those Pokemon stickers that come in a lot of products. I had a pile of stickers there, and those were also appreciated. So that was all nice to have some giveaways. It seemed to me that 151 was really the hottest set, and I wasn't selling 151 in part because I wanted to hold on to my 151. The sealed stuff I have, I'm holding on to for the longer term, and I didn't have a lot of products that had 151 in them, and so 151 I didn't really have. Paldean Fates actually seemed to be a little bit hot in some ways, at least among some folks. There were some people that asked about that. Evolving Skies, I did have several sealed products, sealed boxes and sealed tins that had Evolving Skies inside, but I don't know, my anecdotal experience was that wasn't super motivating for people to pay. I mean, not necessarily a premium. I tried to price everything really fairly. But yeah, it seemed like people weren't really just going bending over backwards to buy Evolving Skies specifically. Again, the trades were kind of a fun part of it, and some people are trying to trade graded slabs, and that's just not really my game. But if anyone had loose or raw cards, I was happy to look. As far as what sold, I want to show you a few things here. You start using my visual aids. So I make these little mini tins. You can see these are vintage tins from the XY era. I ended up getting a whole big box of these, almost, I think, over 100 of these empty tins a while back, and now I've been trying to figure out what to do with them. And so I do a heat seal a bag, and you can tear it across the top here. I put 2 packs inside. I put some 151 packs for Chase, and those sold really well. I mean, probably that was my number one seller, was just these mini tins. I sell one for $12 or 2 for $20, so you're getting 2 packs in one, and you get the vintage mini tin, which I mean, there's other designs. This is the Charizard, obviously, but they all have, it's like Charizard and Pikachu and Mew and Mewtwo and Dragonite are the options here, and so they're very popular Pokemon. It's a cool vintage mini tin, and then you get 2 packs. So it's pretty simple, but that seemed to work well. The thing that didn't sell is I created my own, sorry, this is really big. I have these old tins as well that I picked up just over the years. I picked up some of these size tins, and so I fill it up with stuff. It's totally full. It's just a rubber band around it, nothing too high tech. I don't have any sort of way to wrap it, but I want to keep the lid on. And so it has a variety of packs inside. It has a bunch of loose cards. It has a few not super high value loose cards, but it has some better cards inside, and then it has some bulk cards inside, and it has some card sleeves or a mini binder. I mean, it's really I think a pretty good value. You're basically getting, I charge $25 for these, and you're basically getting what you pay for. And then there were a couple of chase packs in a few of these. And then, of course, I like putting packs in because even if you don't like the loose cards I've put in there, with opening a fresh pack, you always have a chance to pull something, and so that can really increase the value. So I had I had 12 of these prepared and was really hoping to sell them. I did not sell a single one, and no one really even showed much interest in them. So it's not so much that it's a mystery tin that they didn't like, because again, they really liked these mystery tins, but they didn't like those other ones for whatever reason. And the prices, I mean, were slightly different, but again, I was charging $25 for these, and I'm not sure why people didn't go for those. As far as other things that sold, I had some first partner packs, if you remember those from the Celebrations era. Those sold okay. I had some Pokeballs with Cosmic Eclipse inside. Those just sold okay. I mean, people liked that there was Cosmic Eclipse inside, but again, just people weren't really pulling the trigger on those. So I had quite a bit of Celebration stuff of various kinds, and I guess that sold kind of okay. I had some empty vintage ETB boxes that I have amassed over the years, and they're in pretty nice condition back to the XY era, a number of XY ones that often I see selling online for $20 or $30 or even more just for the empty box because they're so old. Those didn't, I mean, a few people thought they were cool to see, but no one bought one. Again, my other mystery tins didn't sell very well. So I don't know. I'm trying to decide if it was worth it for me to be there. Like I said, it was a lot of work kind of leading up to it to kind of prep everything. It's a lot of work to haul stuff, and I didn't have to go very far, but it had been, even in my case with just driving a few minutes to the convention center, it still is a fair amount of work to get up early, to load everything into the car, to get it there, to haul it into they did have wheelies and carts and things you could use, but to get everything there to the table, to set everything up, and then to be on your feet for 6 hours, and then to tear everything down and bring it back. Again, if I had kind of, the guys next to me seemed to, they were doing sports cards, and that really seemed to be the the wheelhouse of the event. So the fact that they were really churning through, if you could make $1 or $2 or $3 or even $4,000 or $5,000 in a day, that would really feel worth it. But in my case, just to make a few $100 didn't feel maybe quite as worth it. Again, I'm trying to keep in mind if I had had electronic payments and could accept those, I think my cash value, and then if I count the trade as value that I acquired, so my overall value could have been probably closer to $700, which I don't know. It still seems like I would love to see it be a little bit higher than that. And I think, again, if it were a Pokemon event, probably would be a lot higher than that. As far as cost, it was $100 to vend for the day, which a flat fee for a one space. There were about 100 tables. I don't know if every single table was full, but it felt pretty full. So you get a sense of like some vendors had more than one table, but I just had one 8-foot table that had 2 chairs, had some space behind me. I propped up a bookcase in there that I could put some additional things on. My space was definitely very full of items. But you can imagine maybe around 100 vendors or at least around 100 tables of stuff. So I probably puts it in the mid size. It's not a super small event, but probably not among the bigger events either. So so it cost $100 to be there. I did spend $45 for the plastic pop-up shelves that I bought. And so, I had about $150 of costs. And so I definitely netted out okay. It wasn't a loss, but it definitely wasn't maybe as exciting or as lucrative as I had hoped it would be. I was really hoping kind of of course, the first goal was just to like pay for itself. Like it took me a while to make my first sale. And there was a time when I was really questioning being there because I wasn't getting much traffic or much attention. And I was really wondering if I was even going to break even. But once I did break even and then kind of surpass that. But again, it was kind of slow going, and just over the course of 6 hours to really only, pull in kind of under $1,000 and quite under $1,000 just didn't feel maybe quite worth it. But I'm wondering if I made some tweaks and changes to what I was offering and learned some lessons this first time, especially again, taking electronic payments, that would help a lot. So I did also do a little bit of shopping, and I'll talk about this more when I do my monthly update. But one benefit of being at a card show is, picking up things. I did pick up most of the time I really was at my table all day, but at the very end of the day, I wandered around and grabbed a few things. I grabbed a couple cards from another vendor. She had them priced well under market price, these 2 cards. So that was great. This card was actually the vendor next to me who was mostly doing sports cards. He had a handful of Pokemon cards, and he sold me this. He gave me a discount on it because probably he talked my ear off all day, but it was really nice to have the company. This is the card I traded for. So I had the Perrin from Twilight Masquerade I needed for my collection, and there was a kid who had this in his binder and was looking to trade. And so I just told him that I would give him equivalent value of anything sealed that I had. And so he picked out a couple things that added up to slightly more than the Perrin card, but I was happy to do that for him. He was a younger guy and was cool that he was doing that. So I benefited and he benefited. Also, there was a woman who was just wandering around selling kind of cards. She had quite a bit of cards she was just hauling from table to table. I don't think she was actually a vendor, but she was, I guess, being entrepreneurial. But she had 4 cards from Stellar Crown that I needed. They were all low value. I paid $10 total just of my own cash to get those. And so those are the singles that I picked up. And then you might have seen hovering in the background, I did pick up one sealed item, a Sword and Shield base set booster box. I've wanted one of these for my sealed collection. I came into the hobby after Sword and Shield base set was released, so I didn't really have first run opportunity at these, and I wanted at least one for my sealed collection. Again, a different vendor had these. She had it well under market price, and so it felt like a good pickup, and it does check something off of my list. So I did okay with the stuff I picked up. Even with all these pickups, I still ended up with making more money than I spent, but not by a whole lot. And again, I think I really would have been nice if I had made a bit more money. So will I do it again? I think this particular card show, again, it's in my city. It's really close to where I live. And so it's, again, literally so close to my house. And so it's probably going to be worth it to try it again just to see what my result, I don't want to just bail out after one experience, and hopefully I'll know a bit better what to bring and how to be prepared for this. But I don't know. It wasn't like a ringing success necessarily this first time through. So I'm going to see if I try it again. Maybe we'll check back in. They try to do this particular card show in my city every 6 months, so about twice a year. And so I'll have another shot in the spring if I decide to do it. And so anyway, we'll update you then. So if you vended, I'd love your experience. Please tell me anything that I mentioned that you were reacting to, something that I can learn or something you've learned from vending. It definitely was my first time and I have lots to learn, but it was, like I said, it was nice to talk. It was a good experience. It was fun to talk with the people who came up to the table, fun to talk with the kids, fun to talk with the adult collectors. And also, I had a good time talking with the two vendors on either side of me. So, as a way to spend a day, it definitely wasn't terrible. I would have liked to make a bit more money from it. But anyway, I can learn lessons and pay that forward in the future. So anyway, thanks for listening to my ramblings about my first card show. Please drop comments. Please tell me what I need to know. And we'll catch you in another video soon.